Hi, and welcome to SAICA's Blue Table Talk. My name is Kokani, and today we'll be talking about the myths of accounting. Today we're basically divulging into what people won't tell you about accounting. I'm not alone. I have a panel with me. I have Dida, I have Dalian, and I have Nomatamsanga. So we're basically just going to introduce ourselves to you. So I'm Kia. I'm a 29-year-old chartered accountant. I'm currently the CFO of the Rooms Network, and I'm a youth's advocate. And the one thing that people don't know about me is that accounting was never the dream. But here we are. So guys, let's have a chat.
Thanks.
So Dida, who are you? Tell us who you are.
I'm in my mid-20s and I'm a qualified CA as well in insurance, non-life insurance particularly. One thing that I believe people might not know about me is that I aspire to open a restaurant of my own future. So I'm an aspiring chef of sort. Yes.
Do you cook, Dida?
I do. Yes. Let me leave it there. Not explain. I cook, yes.
Okay, great. Lovely to meet you. Lovely to have you.
Thanks.
Cool. So I'm Taline. I am the founder of the PG Does Blueprint, which is basically a course that I present to third-year students where I get them ready for the CTA journey ahead. So it's a full-day course where I present training on mentality and the academic side of PG Does and really making a success of it. Currently, I am a second-year audit trainee at PwC in the banking division, and I am enjoying life.
Nice.
So I'd say one thing that people doesn't necessarily know about me is I was fifth in the ITC of January 2024. So quite a cool thing. But yeah, that is me.
Firstly, congratulations.
Thank
That's
you.
big. And we can't wait to welcome you into the CA family.
Thank you so much.
Fantastic. And Noma, last but not least.
Yes. So I'm Noma Tamsanga. I am in my mid-20s. I'm currently in general audit. I'm a senior accountant at one of the big four firms. And apart from that, I have a platform. It's called Authentically Real. This platform the aim is basically to speak on career development, self-development, and just basically my faith Christian talk, right? I would say maybe an interesting fact about me is that I am big on impact. And I think that's why I created my channel, is because I want to create impact. I want the youth or people in varsity or people in high school to have information that I wish I had at the time. So I speak on a lot of topics like that. And I have about over 400,000 views and just over 9,000 subscribers. So yeah, check it out.
Okay. So basically we are surrounded by impact makers, entrepreneurs. So it's about to get real. So guys, I want us to chat about how would you inspire someone who doesn't think they are smart enough to be an accountant so that they can also look this way in terms of career paths?
It's a life of possibilities. I think everything in life is very much possible. I recently read a few stories of people that came from mathematical literacy, a subject that I think in today's world, a lot of people would say shy away from, do pure mathematics. Of course, we encourage people to do pure mathematics because of the skills and the lessons that come from it. But I've seen people in the CA profession that are doing very well. I read a few stories of people that had just recently completed the ISC, the initial assessment of competence, having done mathematical literacy in high school. And from these stories, I get to realize just how if we put our minds into things, and as I've mentioned, not all of us are as smart as the industry is thought to be. It's really just putting in the effort. It's really going on to do the extra mile. We work 10 times more just to achieve the same results as other people. Yeah.
If I can add on to that. So I think I'm speaking to the other side of it, and especially to students, because there's a lot of smart, clever students that come from school, and then when they enter the degree and everything, it just plummets and they start failing for the first time. So it's also like accountants are clever, but it doesn't mean that you're not clever when you fail a test, because it's bound to happen. It has happened to me. It has happened to everyone sitting here. So we have intelligence in a different way. And I think we're problem solvers and we are ambitious people and we like learning. And I think the love of learning is what makes you clever or not. And we all have that. So I think we are clever in different ways. It's not only an academic sense that we contribute to the world.
Definitely. Okay, great. So on top of that, what has been your myth?
I think for me, it would be that accountants are boring people. People put us in a box and they think we're introverts and we don't like working with people. This week, I've had conversations with people in my company, and the one thing that keeps coming up is how much they value working in teams and looking out for people and really making sure that everyone comes along on the journey. We are not boring people, and I think like our degree has so many opportunities. Like in accounting in school, you learn one little piece of what we're going to study, and then you get to university and there's 4 modules, and it's the coolest thing how you can specialize in each of those modules, and within those modules there's even further exploration. So I think we are such well-rounded people that it can't be boring.
Absolutely.
There's no way.
So where would you think the boring comment or aspect comes from? Why would you think people label us as boring?
So I think people don't necessarily understand what we do. I always say accounting is like an art form that you don't understand unless you studied it. Like if we speak about a cool IFRS 15 transaction, people are like, what are you saying? It doesn't make sense. It just goes over their heads. But to us, it's so cool how we can solve problems. So I just think we're misunderstood in society sometimes, but I don't think we're boring. In fact, I think it's quite the opposite, and we're solving important problems that other people might not even know about. So, yeah.
I get that. And I think on top of that, with me being in the entertainment industry, so I've had a career around vast industries, but I've actually found myself in the entertainment industry, and that is a place that is not boring at all. And in the sense of, yes, accountants are just sitting in their offices, scratching the numbers, it's never that. I need to understand the whole value chain of how my business is successful, which means I need to immerse myself in what I'm doing. I need to immerse myself in production. I need to immerse myself in content and how we actually acquire that content. So it is far from boring, and I do understand that. I actually got a comment from my marketing head of department the other day who said, I thought you were boring. And I was like, excuse me, don't you see me? So I was very like, I'm still on that thing that people have that bad inception about us that we are boring people without even understanding. And I think it is that lack of knowledge of what do these people actually do. So I'm really glad that you puts that out there. And I think for the individual that sits at home, for that young child that thinks, I don't want to be boring. I'm now the cool kid at school, but I'm also smart. So at least you can still come into the accounting field and know that misconception is really a lie.
Yes. And also our work is so stimulating. So you get challenged in so many different ways, and at each different level that you work at, there's new stimulation and new problems that you get to solve. I think also people don't know what we do because no one makes movies about CAs.
No.
Like you see doctors and you see policemen, but no one makes movies. Thank you, Ben Affleck, for making The Accountant, but it's not a proper. So I think that's where the misconception comes from, but it's so cool to be in our positions.
Okay. I also think that just gave me an idea. I am in the movie industry, so you might.
I'll be on. Yeah, I volunteer.
Auditions opening soon.
Yes.
So Norma, with you, what did you find was a lie in terms of the accounting profession?
Okay, so I'm going to put 2, right? I'll first start with this one. Tilian touched on it. I thought, coming from high school, okay, it's accounting. It's just that accounting. Yeah, that accounting. That's all you do. Yeah, that's all it is. And then I got to varsity. Cool. You see the different modules, right? Yeah, you have your tax, you have your auditing. And then cool. After that, after undergrad, I realized we are not just limited to that accounting we did in high school. You can be an investment banker. You can be an auditor. You can literally be preparing financial statements. I even did a business development role at some point in my life as an accountant. So I realized you're not just limited to just what they show you in high school or tell you in high school.
Putting together everything that you guys have just mentioned, with me, the myth was the minute you're good in accounting from high school, you will flow through your whole accounting journey. And I found it very, very disappointing when I got my first 8% with my first test in first year. And I hit rock bottom from then because I had never seen this. What in the life is this? I remember my parents sitting me down and saying, do you not like the lecturers? And I was like, no, I'm actually trying. I'm actually studying. I'm actually putting in the work, but it is not reciprocating that type of energy to me. And I realized very quickly from then that I needed to shift my mind. Doesn't mean if I was a top achiever coming from school, then that is the same thing that's going to flow with this. And I realized that also quickly when I had my boards. I'm a person who repeated my first board. I repeated my second board. And the depression that I went through throughout those failures made me question my whole line of, why am I here? What am I doing? Because you are so not expectant of failure that it starts to define you. And it starts to put you at a point where you think, maybe I'm not good enough for this, So I think with me, for the next person is to change your mind, change your mindset with the thought that if you can get your 90s in accounting and matric, you're just going to flow through because you're going to get hit with a very quick reality that this is not it. This is not your mother's house. So basically, you need to change how you study. You need to change how you see the world. And I think that's what has got me to where I am right now. You mentioned something where you said, if you believe it, you can do it. I think with me, that's what has helped me throughout my whole journey. Because even in honors, I got pregnant. That was not the plan. So when that happened, that also had me shift my brain to think, okay, can we now still do it? Because now everyone's looking at you with oh yeah, you've been passing. Now you're pregnant. So what does that mean for you? Then I remember breaking down and thinking, I'm not going to pass. I'm not going to make it. How am I going to now feed my child, etc.? But I had to think, what do I want? What do I want to do, right? So I needed to just change. So I want us to also talk about the changes that you have to go through mentally, emotionally, so that you are able to beat the myths that people say about accounting. As Noma just said, you have this conception of, I'm going to make money, I'm going to get in, and listen, things are going to go high. And then you get to the point where you're like, but the money is not moneying. So what happens? Do I now take a detour? Do I find ways in which I better myself? So I want us to chat about those. Like, what are the changes that one has to do to themselves, to their mind, to their spirituality, so that you can actually, bust all of these myths that you're going to find out. And I think with us too, there's still a long way to go. And there's still other things we're still going to find out that are not true about this profession. So how do you think we can go about that as a person? What must you change? Take us through that, Dida.
Before I go on that, I just wanted to touch on the high school topic of accounting. It talks to why accounting or even commerce generally is not even a prerequisite to be a CA. You find a couple of CAs having done science in high school and they go on and thrive in university. So accounting itself is not necessarily a prerequisite. But to talk on change, I think generally across all professions, moving with time is important. Innovation is important. If one does things as they were done in 1970, that becomes a problem. And no shade on 1970s people, but really just if we continue to do things how they used to be done, and that talks exactly to what Thaleen was talking about, the different ways through which we can specialize. There's various things going on. Tax is evolving over time. We know tax is changing every single year. And a person that continues to read, if you are a tax person or you're doing tax or you're interested in tax, then continuously learning tax and reading every single year is the way through which you become innovative and you learn the changes over time. In audit, to know and understand the different tools of audit, the different ways of making audit a lot more efficient. So moving with time, and that's across all the different spaces. And even in your spaces, you've mentioned outside of the traditional CA space, as you move into media, as you move into entertainment or any other space at all, if we continue to do things how they used to be done, unfortunately, we are moving a little backwards than if we continuously ask the questions of how can this thing be done better? And that's how we innovate, and that's how we become better, and that's how, most importantly, we become more competitive. It becomes easier for us to move across various industries and various sectors. And people will ask, how do you do entertainment as a CA? How do you go on to do media as a CA? How do you go on to do marketing? How do you go on to do business development? And at the core of it is exactly that, understanding that I need to do a lot more, about 10 times more, just to get exactly the same result as the next person. So innovation, being a part of it, I think is the best way.
Perfect. Couldn't have said it better myself.
So I was an academic trainee last year and it was the time of my life. Like, it was literally the best thing I could have done. And I got a lot of insights into academia, obviously, but also the struggles that students go through. And I think one of my favorite lecturers ever, and people will know him, but he said it's not the students with the highest IQ that pass PGDAS, it's the students with the highest EQ. Because you will fail tests. It's going to happen. But that doesn't make you a failure. And there's a difference between students who realize that and students who don't. In fact, I think failing is so important and part of the process because it makes you a resilient individual. It makes you so strong that one day you can stand in the midst of a storm for your company and drive it towards success.
Absolutely.
But if you've never been exposed to failing before, how are you supposed to have that resilience? So yes, it's so important, and it sucks in the moment if it happens. Like, I think we all can attest to that. But are you not so thankful and grateful that you did fail? Because you're the person you are today because of it. So I'm not taking away from the failing in the moment. It's not fun to do it, but it's so important. And if you can step away from that and see that in the bigger picture, it makes it worth it. That course that I also present, the PG Does Blueprint, I focus like more than a half of the day on your mentality, because your EQ and PG Does, in being a CA, in staying positive in the midst of stress and failure and running out of time to do things, that is where the difference comes in between a good and a less good CA. It's about having that EQ and that people skills, and that is what it makes a difference.
Okay, on the back of that, what would you tell your younger self, fresh out of matric, about failure and what to prepare while you're getting into varsity?
Learn from it. As soon as you get the failure, sit in and cry about it for 15 minutes. Limit yourself. My one lecturer told us, give yourself a 15-minute cry session, and then you cry it out. But when that 15 minutes is done, you pick yourself up and you're like, okay, this is what I could learn from this. Why did this go wrong? And this is what I'm actually going to change going forward. And then you stick to that. Because it's part of the process. You will, even if you fail a year, like a year in your life, in your early 20s, it's not that big. Two of my best friends had to redo third year, and it made such a great impact in their career. I was so excited for them that they could redo it. So it's really not the end of the world if it happens. So my younger self would definitely be, failure is part of life. Learn what you can from it and move on.
Okay. And do you think the 15 minutes was sufficient?
No, sometimes you have to break it up into different sections.
To some 15 minutes.
But it's important to have the sessions nonetheless. It must not just be like a week of crying.
I know that because when I was in varsity, me and my friends scheduled crying times. So at least once a week, we need to go to one storm. So I lived at Erika and she lived at Astrov. So it's next door at UP. So then the other week is her place. We go in there and we cry for a good 2 hours. Where everything comes out. And I'm telling you, if I didn't have those sessions, I wouldn't be here right now because I needed to cry and say, listen, course is chowing and it's chowing hard and I don't know how I'm going to make it. So I need someone to be like, your emotions are valid because you call your mom and your mom says it'll be fine. Like, pray about it. That's my mom, very nonchalant. Pray about it, move on. Why are you crying? So I think it's good to have those sessions, good to have someone who you can cry with.
And this also goes out to the men out there. It's not just us ladies who can cry about it. Like, it doesn't have to be crying for you, but deal with those emotions, deal with the stress, talk to someone about it because it is tough. You've never experienced something like PGDAS or CTA before, and you're only 22 years old. How old are you then?
Exactly.
So you're not supposed to be able to deal with everything yet, but you will be able to. So deal with it.
I think that is key. I think it's key. And Dida, you want to touch on it for the man aspect of things?
Well,
can you cry about it? Can you deal with it?
Absolutely. One of the nice things is that SAICA actually did a blue table talk on that. Men's health, November, the importance of being in touch with your own feelings and emotions. That's very important. And as Thalene has mentioned, it might not necessarily need to be crying if you don't feel like that, but there must be a way through which we take out our emotions in a healthy way, because some of us perhaps resort to the negative ways of taking out our emotions, and that's why you see gender-based violence and domestic abuse being things, because somebody thinks, where's my punching bag? And if there is a positive way of taking out your emotions on something else, or a different way of just taking out and actually embracing the emotions themselves, it's important to be in touch and intact with our emotions. Goes back to that EQ, emotional intelligence, understanding what do you do when you are facing a particular time of your life. So that's very important.
And I think even to touch on what you're saying, I'm a huge advocate for therapy. If something is too heavy, go see a specialist. I know there are a lot of, especially with campuses with UJ, I'm a UJ alumni, so yeah.
Same.
Yeah, so they have platforms or places or spaces where one can just go and speak about, this is what I'm going through, this is what if you cannot deal with those emotions. And then I also want to say, failure is not final. Failure is not final. and failure is not your identity. So failure does happen to anybody watching. It is not final and it is not your identity. Don't carry it as if you failed this one test and it's now something that you're gonna, continue with for the rest. I'm a failure. That's not, it's one situation that happened.
Mm.
Like you said, cry about for 15 minutes, go see a therapist, go speak to someone, get up and try again. It's not final.
It's almost, you are a failure if you think you are.
Absolutely.
As soon as you stop thinking you are, failing is just what's happening around.
Yes.
But if you put on that jacket, then you are a failure.
Yes.
No one's going to take it off for you.
Yeah.
You need to take that ownership and stand up from it.
Yeah.
And I think in your podcast, you also touch on the EQ side of things and how did your spirituality change in terms of accounting and all of that?
So I'm big on my faith, on my belief. I believe if that was not in the picture, not to say I would have fallen or whatever, but I really, really relied on my faith, my community. I'm Christian, reading the Bible, being in the Word, praying, and leaning on, as I said, community. So my friends, my family, my Bible study leaders, people that maybe might have not walked the journey, but know exactly how to pour into me in a biblical point of view. So I'd say because of CTA, it drew me closer to God, or had me in a point where I could literally go see God and say, God, I'm tired. Like I've failed. I've done this before. Help me. Can you, how do I move on? Replenish me, revitalize me. So I'd say that's what it did for me.
Yeah. I think touching on that, what nobody tells you about accounting is that you are going to need to depend on a higher power. I think so much of us found ourselves in a corner where you have no one to turn to, not in a sense that you don't have support, but no one really gets where you are. If no one knows your heart. So you can talk to your friends. I mean, my best friend does BSc and I could talk to her, but she's not in that class. No, she's not in FK 100. She's not understanding what I'm struggling with. She's just there emotionally. So when you have a higher power that you can, break down at and say, listen, I'm at my wit's end.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here?
Absolutely.
I think with that, it helps. I've spoken to people of different religions where their religions have taken them through this journey. Because as much as we're trying to achieve something, you lose yourself too along the way. And there's help out there.
Yeah. And I think like when we study long hours and you really need to put in a lot of work. When we get to articles, it's long hours. So it happens a lot. I don't know whether you've had this conversation, but people forget what was fun to them. People don't have hobbies anymore. Last year, my students, I would ask them, when's the last time you did something fun? And they couldn't answer because you get so consumed into what you're doing. You start living and breathing accounting. But life should be about more. It's about spending time with family. It's about going to church because there's nothing that gives you that energy like church does. It's just a different type of revitalization that you get. So for me, I went dancing every single weekend of PG Das. So I went with the friends who didn't study with me. So we would ask each other, how was your week? And we would say good or bad and whatever. And then we would move on and put the week behind us because then we would focus on dancing. So now still, I didn't take my work home with me because no one else there is going to share in that. And that's my safe place. And I think people forget to have that. We need a distraction from what we're doing from 8 to 5 every day so that we are still a well-rounded person and a healthy person. So that we can be there for other people.
I like this because usually would also think that perhaps for me to do things outside of the profession, I probably need to spend money. So like pay to go and do swimming lessons or pay to go in and have fun, go on to pay. Sometimes it's the free things that are really so much fun, as you've mentioned, family, and you've mentioned going into doing dancing and all of that stuff. Other people, they adopt community work. Other people go on and find, free things to do that you can actually enjoy. So that's really important. When something bad is happening in your life and there's so much more good happening all around, then it clears that little bad. When you've got really good things going on around you, you are happy and excited about something. You're waking up in the morning because there's something good going on. It doesn't really matter that just one thing of your life is not going that well. You will be invested in recorrecting it, of course, but the fact that all the other things are going well, that's the revitalizing part, as you've mentioned. Yeah.
I'm actually catching a lot because, as much as you try to be different, I still take work home. I'm still an alcoholic sometimes. Like, I think you get traits that you sometimes throw away, because if you could say about it with me, in varsity, I also went out a lot. Like, I needed to go out. You know, I think that's where alcoholism starts. I'm not going to lie. But I used to do that a lot. And then growing up, you get into so much into your work that I just need to finish this. If tomorrow if I can just prepare for tomorrow, you know, and I think now I'm realizing that, no, I need to step back and think about my safe space, being at home, being with my child, being with my family, you know, seeing other people, realizing that is what is going to make me better, you know, because you said you went out every day, then you went out to be top 5 of SAICA. You know, you think about it and you're like, do you really need to be, you know, on the books 24/7?
I think it's about being productive when you are working. It doesn't mean I spent my whole weekend dancing. I still worked my X amount of hours, whatever, and I did it productively. Even now, like, you don't need to work all the hours. Just meet your deadlines. So in the 8 to 5, when you do work, make sure you do it effectively, because then it's not necessary to take that work home. And you need to be strict on yourself as well.
Yeah.
And make a priority. If you don't get time to spend time with your friends, it's your own fault. You need to prioritize them and work them into your calendar, because then it is possible. And you'll be a better worker because of it as well.
I think these are life lessons than accounting lessons, eh? So we...
Right?
A lot of
It's just therapy session. People don't know they need it. So, you know, before we close off, I'd like us to just have one sentence that we'd like to tell someone out there who wants to be a CA what they can actually know, a fact about accounting this time, because now we're talking about things that are not true, but what actually is true about your career and where you're at right now. Just one liner, and then we close it.
It will expose you. It will expose you. Yeah.
Enough said.
You will never be bored, and just enjoy it.
And you know what?
I would say there's a lot of growth, and I don't just mean technical skills. I also mean soft skills. There's a lot of growth in this career. You grow a lot. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
The one thing I'd say would be, don't box yourself. Don't box yourself. You don't need to stay in one industry. Go wherever you want. That's the beauty in what we do. All right. So that's from us. That's from the SAICA's Blue Table Talk. And hopefully we'll catch you next week.
Bye.